Hey YouTube, I've been gone a minute. If you've been following this since the beginning, sorry, this is more of a completed than a how-to or a follow-along type video. Along the way, I lost motivation as well as footage and just did the whole thing off camera. But I've been driving this now for about a month and a half or so. It's been completed, and here's my thoughts. So I did manage to get the front end to basically touch lip. You can see it just touching right over there a little bit. My gravel's uneven a little bit, but that was the goal. Now, I went as low as I possibly could with the back end, but it does have a bit of a rake to the truck. My diff is almost touching the box, but we didn't have to damage the box. So I mounted my air tank. I just built these aluminum brackets. First time welding aluminum. I ran more or less mesh fuel lines as my air lines, so that way nobody can just come by and snip my lines. Also looks a lot better than just the little air lines that you run to the bags individually. As you can see, my interior is still kind of apart. I haven't even finished putting everything back together. I've just been driving it like this for the last month and a half. And yeah, at this point, I just thought I better put a video out because it's been too long. So a few things I'll show you guys. Now, I have my air compressor, which is mounted back underneath the truck. Let me show it to you. There she is, mounted underneath the truck. So I have my Vixen water separator here I can drain. I have my switching valve. This is just one I bought off Amazon, honestly, and it's been working great so far. Don't mind this, I'm just keeping my sub box from rolling around too far. So the cool thing about the switching valve here is I have ports that go to each bag with sensors that go to my gauge, as well as I have sensor here for tank pressure to monitor. And I ran stainless braided lines again, or mesh braided lines with AN fittings. Okay, so my 4 switches for each individual bag. I got the front 2, the back 2. These are nice, they're like momentary. So my switch over here, now I haven't hooked up the wideband or my oil pressure sensor yet. I'm just driving around without them on. But the top is going to display tank pressure, and then front left, front right, rear right, which is pretty cool. So I can adjust everything on the fly. I have an idea where I like all my pressures to be when I'm driving, and based on ride height and everything like that, I've just at this point kind of memorized everything. So I'm usually running the fronts at about 90 psi when I'm driving down the road, and the rears at about 30 psi. It actually feels really good, like it's not too stiff. I wasn't sure because of the bag choice I went with, but if I need clearance, I'll jack it up to about 100 in the front and 40 in the rear, and then when I hard park it, I just dump it down to 0-0. I'll do a live pump up and I'll show you guys how slow and fast and the ranges and everything like that. But there's another thing here. So the tank is on pressure So the tank is on pressure sensors for the pump to turn on and off. And that's great and all, except it kicks on as soon as I air up, which is really annoying if you're in a parking lot. So I just threw an extra switch right here so I can manually I could override it basically. So when it's in the on position, there's still a pressure sensor to turn on and off the compressor. But if I go off, it's just overridden and I don't have to deal with it. That way, when I pump up in a parking lot, it doesn't kick the compressor on right away and make a ton of noises and, you know, pulling out, keeps it a little bit cleaner. So let me set the camera up and I'll show you guys. Okay guys, I'm sitting at 197 psi tank pressure. I'll show you how from here I pump it up. I usually do the fronts first on the way up, or else if I do the backs first, the front lip just gets dug right into the ground. So this is where I would drive at. I'm at about 90 in the front, 30 in the rear. That dropped my tank pressure from just shy of 200 to 162. And now we'll go all the way up in the front for clearance height. Now without turning my compressor on, again, that's as high as I'm getting the front bags. I'm down to 115 tank pressure. I'm sitting at 120 in the fronts and 100 in the rear. PSI. I usually bag, I'll show you the downward travel right now too. It might not be that audible because the mic is in the vehicle with me, but I have 2 ports dumping the air outside my vehicle by the frame. So outside the vehicle, it's actually pretty loud, which is what I wanted. There we are, full down. Well, if you look closely, you could have seen the gravel actually shooting up from the air pressure down at the back. If you notice, the rear came down a lot lower. There's no weight in the box whatsoever, right? So it's going to drop a lot slower in the back. I'm running the 1/4-inch airline on all of these. Now, if I bumped it up to, I guess, 3/8, it would have been more substantial. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with how it all worked out. One thing I wish, if I were one thing I would do differently if I was starting from scratch is I would have taken the box and I would have raised the entire bed. Now, remember, if you watched any of my other videos, I had to keep this bed flat so I could still haul stuff. It has to be a usable truck for me. So putting a big hump for the diff in the back was out of the question. Now, if this box wasn't already finished, my truck wasn't already past paint, I think I would have cut all this out, and actually just raised the entire flatness of the bed. And then I would have been able to absolutely dump the back end of this to match the front. I don't mind the rake, but I would prefer if it dumped equal. I mean, we're getting really picky and choosy here, right? I built my truck in certain stages. If you haven't seen it, this used to be a long box. I'll throw up a picture. And I shortened it and chopped it, and it already was in paint stage before I thought, hey, let's build an air suspension setup for it. I haven't had any problems with it. I'm still driving around with tools, anticipating something to go wrong. I haven't finished my inner fenders. That's pretty ugly under the hood, I'm going to be honest. At this point, I just need it on the road. I built the rear disc, set it from scratch. My brakes are working great. Super stiff pedal. I did a universal part brake kit for it, so I still had a cable. My part brake works better than it ever did. It looks cool with the brakes. Somebody from one of my other YouTube videos actually commented that I should throw white calipers on it. I had these all painted red originally, and I thought, you know, it's a good idea. That'd be super clean. So I did it in white, and I'm really happy with that. I think yellow would probably look pretty cool too, but yeah, I'm gonna be honest. At this point, guys, I'm just happy to have it out of the shop because summer is here, and I'm a little bit tired working on it all the time. So it's at a good stage for now. Of course, it will get finished. I'll build inner fenders. I'll probably do a cool engine swap under the hood, and the interior still needs dressing. As you can see, I got my little Yakima tail rack on here. I was out with the kayaks the other day and mountain biking the day before that, so I still make sure I'm using it for a truck. I can't afford to have it just parked. That would be cool one day to get it to a point where it's like just a full-on kind of weekend warrior type truck. I think I would really get carried away with it at that point. I don't know how many years away I am from that. Life is busy and expensive, and yeah. So sorry for the low quality video, guys. I had to put something out because it's just been too long. So I guess I would have to say, is it worth it? First of all, this was a ton more work than I anticipated, and I think I took the hard way about going through it, trying to build everything from scratch, because I do enjoy the process of the journey. It would have been way easier to buy a kit, even a fabrication series kit. Anybody attempting to do this yourself, unless you really want to like just enjoy the journey or struggle through the journey, I'd advise doing that. But was it worth it? Now that I'm in the final, now that it's drivable and I'm driving down the road, it was absolutely worth it. Like, it's such a stupid mod. I've had people come up to me and, everybody questions what the air tank is in the back. If you know what air suspension is and you're building air suspension for your vehicle or thinking about it, you're such a small percentage of people. Like, to normal people, nobody knows what air suspension is and nobody cares, right? Like, most people think that's a fuel tank, or they're like, what's that for? Which is great. Start a good conversation starter. When people see this thing just dumping or coming back up, it just trips people out. People are super excited about it. I've had tons of compliments on it. And, as part of the builder, that's cool to have your build appreciated, right? But for myself, it's just something I wanted since I was a kid. And now that I have it, it's ridiculously cool. Would I do it again? I would do it again in a different sense, as in I probably would just pony up and buy a fabrication series stuff that came with all of metal pre kind of cut and then weld it together. Trying to cut metal precisely with limited tools as I have is so time consuming, like incredibly time consuming. Also, what I regret doing was trying to do this in my spare time, like trying to be like, okay, I'm gonna put a couple hours in on the weekend, or all right, today is slow in the shop, I'll work on it for a few hours. That was extremely hard because you get out of your flow so often. I find it way easier when you're doing anything technical or even projects. You get into a flow when you're working, and you can get so much progress done when you're in that flow. But once you're in and out of it as much as I am, it just becomes cumbersome. When I was trying to film it, it was even more cumbersome because I would be like, I want to work on it today, but my camera's dead or my microphone's dead, or I just don't feel like filming today. And that would prevent me from even working on it, which is why the last leg of the journey, when I lost my initial data, I just shut my cameras off. And honestly, it went so much faster for me just to do out of camera. That's part of the journey. Anybody making YouTube content full time, props to you guys. But this is the truck. If you're thinking about doing it, definitely consider doing it. I would prefer to just take, it's not practical, but to take like a month off or 3 weeks off and just nonstop work on it. That would have been way more efficient. Maybe not practical for everybody's financial means and obligations and such. For myself, I guess finances to pull this thing off. Geez, I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I don't want to just spitball numbers, but it's more than you anticipate, but it's probably less than I originally would have assumed it was going to add up to. That being said, the hours and the cost of my hours, if I were to just go work on other people's vehicles or something, was insane. So I am married to this truck. There's no way I'm getting my time back out of this, which is fine. It was never part of the equation for me, but something to think about. During the process, there was a time in my mind where I was like, oh, maybe I should go buy some more of these long box trucks and I can do more air setups and I can flip the trucks and make some money. And that is just not even remotely feasible with how much work went into this. Doesn't make sense. But as a passion and something to own, super, super cool. Really happy it's mine. Can't wait to see where it goes from here. But for now, I just got to keep making money and get back to life. So thanks for checking out the video.